Stray beams of late afternoon sunshine slanted through the high windows of the community center's multi-purpose room, painting glowing rectangles on the scuffed wooden floor. The place smelled faintly of tempera paint, stale popcorn, and dust. An aroma that Milo Vasquez found comforting, because it meant something was about to be created. He rested his forearms on the wheels of his chair and scanned the cluttered space. Stacks of duct-tape-scarred cardboard, emptied-out refrigerator boxes, jars of glitter, a roll of silver mylar salvaged from last month's theater production, and a curious assortment of tools. Above it all, a hand-painted banner from the center's previous tenants fluttered lazily. Craft like your dreams depend on it. Milo had come here almost every weekday since summer started, maneuvering his chair the 3 blocks from the apartment he shared with his mom and younger sister. He came for the art supplies, for the air conditioning, and, if he was being absolutely honest, for the retired astronaut who'd taken up residence in the corner studio, Commander Elena Reyes, official title Volunteer in Residence, unofficial title Queen of Out-of-This-World Stories. Everyone in the neighborhood still called her Astro Elena, though she'd left NASA 15 years earlier after her second stint aboard the International Space Station. Milo liked to picture her tumbling weightless in orbit, although nowadays she walked with a slight stiffness from an old EVA training injury, and was more likely to be seen pushing a cart loaded with cardboard than floating among satellites. He saw her now, bent over a beat-up donor computer, studying schematics. A strand of steel-gray hair had escaped her ponytail and wavered like an antenna. When she spotted Milo, she brightened as though someone had ignited a booster. "You made it on time," she said, tapping her watch. "Mission commences at 1600 hours sharp." Milo grinned. "Do I get to know what the mission is today?" "Building the craft that will take us past Proxima Centauri, of course," she said, deadpan, then winked. "We'll start with propulsion. Never underestimate the thrust provided by imagination and a generous application of hot glue." Milo nudged his chair closer. He preferred to keep his right hand on the wheel rim. His left hand tired faster, so he circled in from an oblique angle. "Cardboard again?" "Cardboard forever," Elena declared. "Lightweight, abundant, and recyclable. NASA should be jealous." He didn't bother hiding his excitement. Ever since school recess had become more complicated, the uneven blacktop, the occasional stairs, the feeling of being left behind when the other kids sprinted, he'd sought adventures that were bigger on the inside than the outside. Books delivered some of that, but cardboard, under Elena's guidance, had become a portal. In the past month, they'd built a lunar rover, a helmet with functioning LEDs to simulate docking lights, and a glove that sprayed a mist of water vapor when he flexed his fingers, approximating the look of thrusters. But a full spaceship, that was the ultimate endeavor. Elena spread out a rough blueprint on the table between them. "We'll need to calculate dimensions. You're the pilot. How tall are you seated?" 3'9", last time the doctor measured. "Add a few inches for helmet clearance. And we'll want controls within easy reach. No astronaut likes fumbling." She pointed to a rectangle. "I've allowed for 2 forward windows, a dorsal viewing dome, and an aft supply hatch." Milo traced the hatch with his finger. "Enough space for snacks?" She laughed. "Critical systems first. Life support, navigation, then goldfish crackers." They set to work. Elena wielded a box cutter with a surgeon's precision. Milo measured and marked with a stubby pencil whose eraser resembled a tiny astronaut puke bag after so many corrections. Whenever a panel needed scoring, he held a metal ruler flush, and she guided the blade along its edge. They talked the whole time about orbital mechanics, about whether a cardboard heat shield could hypothetically survive re-entry if coated with ablative jello, and about the Roman philosopher Seneca, whom Elena quoted often. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Around 5 o'clock, the door opened and sunlight spilled across the floor. Milo's mother entered, her nursing scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. She paused when she saw the nascent craft, a skeletal framework of boxes, duct tape, and dreams standing nearly 6 feet tall. "Goodness," she said, half awed, half apprehensive. "You'll need a garage soon." "A hangar," Elena corrected gently. "Interstellar craft deserve hangars." Milo's mom raised an eyebrow. "Homework before stars, Milo." "It's summer," he reminded her. Then, seeing the look that meant argument over, he wheeled alongside, promising to be home for dinner. Elena saluted them both as formally as any cadet at attention. The next day, Milo arrived early, beat Elena by half an hour, and spent the time fitting hinges to the cockpit hatch. When she finally strode in, carrying 2 iced lemonades balanced atop a stack of foam sheets, he called out, "Commander on deck." She halted, surveyed his progress, and executed an exaggerated whistle. "You'll put the shipyard division out of business." He handed her the spare hinge. "I want the door wide enough that I can pull in without scraping." Accessibility, she tapped the cardboard. The hallmark of a civilized galaxy. They worked until lunch, cutting circular windows, lining them with clear plastic from a discarded poster frame. Elena encouraged Milo to think through every system. "A spacecraft isn't only walls," she said. "It's function embedded in form. Where will you store your suit? How will you secure yourself during turbulence? Imagine every scenario before it happens." At home, Milo had grown used to others doing the imagining for him. Teachers rearranging desks, coaches muttering about liability forms. Here he was, the architect of his own environment. He decided on a sling seat made from repurposed canvas and suggested a bungee cord harness to keep him stable. Elena rifled through a supply bin and came up with exactly what he needed. "Astronaut quality," she said. Days passed in a pattern that felt like orbit. Arrive, design, cut, tape, reinforce. Share stories while the glue cooled. Spin wild hypotheticals about alien civil rights and the economics of asteroid mining. The hull took shape. Box edges sanded smooth with a scrap of fine grit sandpaper so they wouldn't catch Milo's sleeves. Decorative flourishes followed. Silver mylar fins, a painting of the Horsehead Nebula on the port side, and the call sign Starhopper stenciled in bold black letters. One afternoon, Elena emerged from the storage closet holding a battered metal switchboard salvaged from an old recording studio. Rows of toggle switches, dials, and levers gleamed beneath a layer of dust. "Mission control panel," she announced. Together, they mounted it at the right height for Milo's reach, hot gluing wires so they terminated at colored LEDs. When he flipped the first switch and a blue light blinked alive, he felt a current dance down his spine, as if he truly commanded power. On Friday, rain drummed the tin roof so loudly they had to shout. The community center emptied early except for them. Water leaked in a corner, forming a puddle that reflected the growing ship. Milo stared at the rippling mirror and thought of black holes. How matter fell inward, but information was still debated. Would Starhopper carry his information beyond the singularity of other people's expectations? He voiced the question shyly. Elena crouched, ignoring the pop in her knee. "I can't promise where you'll travel," she said. "But I know the first step to any place worth going is refusing to accept the map someone else hands you. You draw your own." He wanted to ask more, yet words felt clumsy. Instead, he tightened a strip of tape running along the dorsal seam. The rain softened. The moment passed, but something inside him shifted. The way stars appear stationary yet hurtle hundreds of kilometers a second. The following week heralded the annual Neighborhood Makers Fair. an outdoor carnival of invention and creativity. Elena suggested they unveil Starhopper there. Milo's immediate instinct was no. Fairs meant crowds, bumps, accidental kicks, occasional pity smiles. Yet he heard her describe the fair as an open sky for dreamers, and he imagined the craft gleaming under sunlight rather than fluorescent bulbs. He surprised them both when he answered, "Let's launch!" Preparation intensified. They rigged a small speaker inside the cockpit to broadcast a recording of NASA's iconic Go, No-Go poll. They aligned the window frames and polished them with vinegar solution until they sparkled. Elena produced an ancient smoke machine, artifact from a Halloween long ago, and they tested it, giggling when gray vapor burbled through a vent and set off the community center's outdated smoke detector. Milo's cheeks ached from smiling. The day before the fair, Starhopper awaited final inspection. Elena dressed in her old flight suit, patches faded but unmistakable. She toggled each switch while Milo followed with a clipboard. Lights? Green across the board. Thrusters? Nominal. Dream containment unit? He laughed. Overflowing? Then we are go for launch. That night, Milo barely slept. In bed, he rehearsed the route to the fairgrounds, down Mill Street, past the mural of migrating swallows, across the crosswalk where the sidewalk dipped for accessibility. His anxiety gnawed at him. What if the cardboard softened in the sun? What if someone pushed too hard and ripped off a wing? What if they laughed? He remembered third grade when a boy imitated his wheelchair squeaking and called it the Titanic, unsinkable but going nowhere. Morning arrived with a breeze that smelled of cut grass and promise. Elena met him at the community center. Volunteers helped wheel Starhopper onto a borrowed flatbed cart. She handed Milo a captain's cap she'd sewn from black fabric accented with a silver star. Every skipper needs headgear, she said. They set off. The cardboard ship bobbed gently on the cart like a vessel riding swells. Children pointed, adults paused, phones raised. At first, Milo kept his eyes glued to the sidewalk cracks, but gradually curiosity overrode fear. He watched reflections slide across the cockpit glass, each passerby an alien species to greet. The fairground buzzed with music and hammering and the sizzle of fry bread. Booths sprouted like technicolor mushrooms, 3D printed jewelry, homemade drones, a bicycle that powered a blender full of mango smoothies. Starhopper earned a prime spot near the gazebo after the organizers realized they couldn't navigate the narrower lanes. Milo worried about blocking traffic until Elena whispered, "Command presence makes room for itself." Setup took 20 minutes. They lowered the ramp and Milo maneuvered inside. From within, the outside world filled the windows like stars across a viewport. He flipped a switch. LEDs glowed amber, blue, red. A hush settled over his nerves. The chair locked into the canvas sling exactly as planned. Everything he needed was within reach. He was, for all intents, ready for spaceflight. Elena stood beside the hatch, greeting visitors. Her voice carried the calm authority of someone who'd actually seen the curvature of Earth. "No flash photography near the navigation array, please. Contain your excitement inside the gravity well." People chuckled and lined up. Children begged to crawl through the aft hatch. Elena limited them to helmet selfies taken from the dorsal dome while Milo demonstrated control panels. The first attaboys trickled in. Brilliant. You built this? From cardboard? Unreal. A local reporter approached, microphone poised. He addressed Elena first, but she redirected him. "Interview the captain." Milo's throat tightened. He thought of escape trajectories. Yet the lenses looked less like threats and more like distant suns. each with its own solar system of stories waiting. He spoke of thrusters powered by imagination, of how a wheelchair could double as flight chair because both required careful vectoring, of how boundaries were guidelines, not walls. When he finished, applause rose unscripted. He felt weightless. Mid-afternoon, a group of boys from his school arrived, teammates from the soccer squad he'd quit after his legs weakened 2 years ago. Milo's pulse hit escape velocity. They examined the ship. One, Luis, ran a hand over the mylar fin. "Cool," he muttered. Another peered through the window. "Hey, there's actual stuff inside?" Milo braced, expecting sarcasm. Instead, Luis looked at him squarely. "You build this yourself?" "And the commander," Milo said, jerking a thumb toward Elena, who winked. "Dude," Luis said, awe trumping the need for jokes. "We're studying forces in physics next semester. You could totally demo this." The suggestion flicked on a new constellation in Milo's mind, presenting not as the kid who needed accommodations, but as subject matter expert. He swallowed, nodded. "If the craft fits through the door, sure." After they left, Elena crouched near the hatch. Observation? That was unexpected. Space is full of unexpected. So is Earth. Part of commanding a ship is accepting good surprises, too. Late in the afternoon, clouds massed like colossal cruisers overhead. A brisk wind ruffled banners. Elena checked her phone's weather app and frowned. Milo knew storms could unravel cardboard faster than micrometeoroids. They began securing loose tape, tucking in flaps. A gust toppled a neighboring booth whose stilts were made of PVC pipe. People scrambled. Milo reached for switches, heart galloping, though there was nothing a blinking LED could do against air currents. Elena cupped her hands to his ear. "Time for emergency evacuation protocol. We'll push her back inside the center." Milo hesitated. Dismantling the exhibit felt like aborting a launch. Then a raindrop splattered against the cockpit window, sliding downward like a tear. He nodded. Together they rolled the flatbed toward the street, fighting wind. A wheel hit a pothole. The cart lurched. One corner of Starhopper's tail fin snagged a post and tore. Milo gasped. Elena steadied the craft, but the damage, though small, stung. She whispered, "Patching is what tomorrow is for." Half the neighborhood seemed to join the rescue mission. A pair of food truck operators and 2 teenage skateboarders flanked the cart, shielding the cardboard with tarps. They reached the community center as fat drops began hammering the asphalt. Inside, the hall was dim, power flickering. Volunteers helped lower the ship to the floor. Milo rolled backward down the ramp, soaked but triumphant. "I'm sorry," he said, touching the torn fin. "It's a souvenir of survival," Elena answered. Then, voice soft so only he could hear, "Remember how your wheels handled the pothole? That's data for the next expedition." Thunder cracked. Lights died. Emergency exit signs glowed eerie red. Someone produced battery lanterns, bathing the ship in moon-like light. Milo's heartbeat slowed. In the hush, the hull's imperfections blurred, leaving only silhouette. He imagined it in orbit, far above storms and gravity. Elena settled onto a folding chair, rubbing her knee. "Want to know a secret of old astronauts?" she asked. "Always. We train for failure, not success. Landing safely means cataloging each near miss, each miscalculation. Glory rides on the shoulders of almost." Milo studied the ripped fin, the smudged paint, the water stains. He pictured making repairs, adding reinforcement, maybe installing detachable wings. He realized the build was never truly done, just as journeys never really ended. Every planet orbited something bigger. "So, next time," he said, "we launch again?" Without hesitation. Lightning flickered outside. For a moment it looked like cosmic radiation through the windows, and Milo imagined their cardboard refuge hurtling between galaxies. He turned to Elena. When you were up there, did Earth look big or small? She considered. Both. Large enough to contain wonders, small enough to need our protection. He nodded, digesting the paradox. The room vibrated with thunder, but he felt calm. After the storm passed and other volunteers drifted home, Milo remained, applying gentle pressure to the torn fin with a fresh strip of tape. Elena supervised, sipping lukewarm vending machine coffee. Over her shoulder, he glimpsed the banner. Craft like your dreams depend on it. The words seemed to pulse with secret relevance. He taped the fin, smoothed the edge, then added another layer, not because the structure demanded it, but because he could. Finally, Elena rose. I'd offer you a ride, but I know you prefer navigating under your own power. Milo flexed his fingers on the wheel rims. Part of command. They locked up, leaving Starhopper gleaming under emergency LEDs. Outside, puddles mirrored the streetlights. They parted ways at the corner. Milo rolled through the damp night, Cap still perched on his head. Each turn of his wheels felt like rotation of a gyroscope, stabilizing trajectory. Later at home, he recorded several notes in the logbook Elena had given him. 1. Strengthen fin seams. 2. Test smoke machine kernels for moisture sensitivity. 3. Consider exhibit for physics class. 4. Do not fear crowds. They are just constellations waiting to be mapped. Before sleeping, he stared at the ceiling and pictured the community center, silent. The cardboard vessel incubating in dark. In his mind's eye, the ship's edges glowed, lines becoming vectors, vectors becoming possibilities. He thought about how little mass a dream truly had. Less than cardboard, less than air, yet how far it could carry someone. He drifted off, imagining the voice of mission control counting down. 10, 9, 8. Between each number, he inserted a personal affirmation. I am the pilot. I choose the course. Wheels are not anchors, but thrusters. 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. In the morning, Elena would text him fresh modifications and they'd begin anew. The craft would evolve, maybe never perfect, definitely never finished. Neither was Milo. But somewhere in the unfinished spaces between tape seams and LED glows lay the undeniable proof that imagination, not fuel, not legs, launched explorers to the stars and kept them there, endlessly orbiting possibility.